All right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to TLC Academy. My name is Alan Sousie, Director of Nursing here at TLC, and with me today I have Sharon McCarthy, one of our fine caregivers, who is going to present to us today on positive psychology in relation to anger. And Sharon brings to us some expertise, having been a counselor in the past in her professional work, as well as having helped other people to experience recovery along the way for a variety of reasons. So with that said, I turn the floor to Sharon and let her offer her thoughts to us this morning.
Thank you, Alan. Continue from there.
Okay, so Sharon, I turn the floor to you and offer you the opportunity to share with us your thoughts and your understanding of this issue concerning anger.
Thank you, Alan. So the reason that I started doing these presentations is several years ago I was privileged to be a counselor at a residential facility. And one of the classes that I facilitated was called Understanding Emotions. Excuse me. During these classes, I was able to present as a counselor what I had come to understand and experience about recovery. In time, I started to get a lot of positive feedback about what I was sharing in class. So today we will be discussing some of that experience and understanding. As Alan said, today's topic is dealing with anger during recovery and the positive psychology in relation to anger. Anger is a normal response to situations or circumstances that we perceive as an offense, hurt, or trauma. Focusing on the positive aspect in any given situation rather than the negatives, what brings about recovery over time. There's always something positive that we can learn from any experience. It is how we choose to look at it. What am I learning through this? What can I do differently the next time? Always something to learn, isn't there? Tolerance, perhaps endurance, compassion, acceptance, humility. We are being refined by our adversity if we are open to it. Meditation and prayer changes our relation to our emotions. There is an actual physiological response. Studies have been done and there have been positive results in scientific research in relation to brain activity when praying and meditating. Even though one appears very relaxed at the time of reflection and prayer, there's actually heightened activity in the frontal cortex, which is the left side of the brain. Lots of activity going on in the brain where our thought process is. This was measured by MRIs, so this is very interesting. The brain is a learning machine, and we can reshape our circuitry in our brain for our well-being. As we change our thought processes, we become more compassionate and more forgiving. By mindfulness, deep breathing, prayer, discipline, we can train our minds, train our brain to transform. Happiness comes from within. It is a choice that we make day by day, minute by minute, second by second. Fellowship. We need social relationships. We need to feel connected. This is the benefit of a church, a synagogue, spirituality, or a 12-step program, or any place of worship. We need companionship and affirmations. We need support from others. We need to feel good about ourselves and our actions. Changing our behaviors and responses, the more that we practice positive responses and ways of communicating, the more positive that we begin to automatically act in our lives. We begin to feel better about ourselves. At first, it is a conscious act that we practice over and over. We are aware of it. After a while, it becomes who we are. Every time we act positive, we feel good. Every time that we act negative, we feel bad. It's a given. And as you begin to feel better about yourself, you begin to be able to forgive. You can let go, which is a 12-step slogan, fake it till you make it. So there's a lot to be said about that initially. There is a story of an Indian elder, a Cherokee. He told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside of people. "My son," he said, "the battle is between two wolves inside us all. One is evil. It is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The grandson thought about this for a moment, and then asked his grandfather. He said, "Which one wins?" The old Cherokee elder simply replied, "The one you feed." Happiness is contagious. It can be passed from person to person, and then the opposite is true. Negativity is poison. It can very quickly permeate everything around us, including others. So if we focus on the positives in life and situations, that is what will take hold eventually. It's okay to talk about things in counseling, of course, to release that emotional charge that's being held in your bodies. It's okay to get to the bottom of hurts and traumas and anger, talk about it, cry about it, laugh about it, be angry for the moment, whatever the case may be, but then forgive it. Move on. Do not rehash over and over long term. Get out of the victim mode and become a victor over your circumstances in your life. Move on. Talk about what you can do about it in the now. How can you become a victor? How can you overcome? How can you give back to others? Look at the positive, become a mentor, share your lessons that you have learned, share what has helped you in overcoming. Share your spiritual growth, things that are beginning to make sense to you, how you understand it. Listen to what worked for others. Look at what they did to overcome. How did they do it? Read recovery stories, read memoirs, pray, study, be open to researching things on a more spiritual level. Reach out to others. It is healing. Even when we are still healing. This is why 12-step programs work. It is a forum while we are healing. It is an umbrella. There are old-timers that we can learn from and others that are walking the walk along with us. Get involved in healthy ways. We need to interact with others. We are social beings. We need that connection. Find it. This is also one of the benefits of a residential treatment program while in recovery. We are each other's teachers and mentors, learning how to deal with the good and the bad in others with diplomacy and dignity. It is a learning curve for the outside world if you perceive it this way. Just do it. Do not give up. Keep on keeping on. Think of possibilities. Turn your life around in the now. Construct in your minds a new way of overcoming and dealing. Get involved in positive activities with positive people. Like attracts like. Excuse me. Develop strong relationships with positive, successful people in recovery. People who have walked your walk. Observation of others who have overcome. How did they do it? Being engaged in hopeful directions for yourself. Committed to a positive lifestyle and direction. Be accountable, not shamed. Be proud of your walk and your journey. Be open to the shifts in your reality and your thinking. Motivation. Use this time in recovery to regroup. Take classes as you get out in the world to better yourself. Immerse yourself in interests. Have a plan for your future. Get organized emotionally and physically, and spiritually get centered. Give back. Continue to try. Continue to strive, one step at a time. Your life will change for the better. Each day, each step, each positive intention will begin to materialize. Life is a journey. Surrender to the past and what is, and what has been. Embrace the future with hope in your heart. Never give up hope and live for today, in the moment, in the now. The choice is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Well, very welcome.
We have a lot here to chew on in terms of content.
We certainly do.
It's evident that this came out of your work with people who had an addiction to something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever
true.
that might have been. and I don't want our listeners or viewers to see this only relating to substance abuse or any type of an addictive process. What I want to ask them to emphasize and think about more clearly is the general content of the principles here.
Exactly.
You know, getting away from the notion of negativity versus positive actions and thoughts, and how that affects lives. The notion of, you know, long-term repetition of things, as I learned a long time ago, negative tapes that run in our heads,
Yes.
that continue to trip us into failure rather than positive thoughts that we can instill into our heads, which trips us into success. It takes a while to re-tape, to reset your tape system after you've been down and out for a while.
Yes.
What has it been like as you've watched people change? That what have you seen come out of their efforts to change? What are some of the results that you've encountered that people have obtained when they begin to follow the principles of positive thinking and pursuing things in a spiritual manner as opposed to just physical?
Well, I think that, of course, depression and anxiety and negative thinking can be very binding, and it holds us back from all of the beauty that we can experience in life. So one is not able to really live in the moment and be in the now because, as you said, they're so busy listening to these tapes that are running through in their head. And that is a real problem. We really need to refocus. And certainly it makes a difference in relationships and how people are able to go on to do successful careers and have success in their families. And I don't think that it's a end-all be-all kind of thing. I mean, I think life is a journey and we're always going to be learning. I don't want to use the word struggle because I think if we look at it that way, that's a negative connotation in and of itself.
Exactly.
But I think that life definitely is always going to be throwing us curveballs, and I think we have to, and I think once before we express this, we were talking about, I had heard someone speaking, and she said she was getting to a place in her life where she was becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. So and that really spoke to me because I think that's it. Life, it is what it is. Life, nothing is ever going to be smooth sailing and perfect. And, you know, I think we have to accept that about life so that we don't set ourselves up for all of these disappointments. And then once we get to that place of seeing life that way as a journey, we start to see that there is something that we can learn in everything that's presented to us, I think, and I believe. And I did see that with the people that I counseled. Yes, once people change those tapes in their head, they're able to really grasp life from a whole different perspective. Yeah.
Relating this back to the concept of anger.
Okay.
I'd like to know from you how some of these ideas, positive ideas, bring about a relaxation of our anger and also maybe even eventually an appropriate reuse of it. Because anger isn't necessarily an unhealthy experience to have.
No.
We all have to have moments when we get frustrated and angry. That happens in life, but it's how we respond to it when we experience that feeling. So what you're sharing here is how we can handle that differently, rather than the way we typically would, which is to turn around and fight or get outrageous about it. So can you speak a little bit more to that?
I think, as you said, anger is a very normal emotion. And I think with a lot of, and I think it would be a mistake to say you get to a place where, even having had the background that I've had as a counselor and in my own life, the experiences that I have had, of course we experience anger. I think that what is toxic is when we continue to spiral with that anger. I think it's very important if you're in a place where you're feeling angry to, like I was saying, express that emotion. And it's very important to, most of the time, do that in a counseling situation.
Because it's safe?
Because it's safe, and because there is no judging, and it's not going to be a trigger. When we try to express that to the person or situation that's happening in our life, that's when it often becomes toxic. Because even though we may understand a lot of things, having had the experiences that we've had, and have a positive viewpoint of it, it still can spiral. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
I don't mean to say that we can get to a place where we're perfect.
No.
Perfection or anything like that. I just think it's very important to see these things and to experience the feeling. But once we do that in a safe environment, as you were saying, we're able to get past it eventually. Maybe not immediately. And I think it's very counterproductive to continue to go over something over and over and over. I think we have to look at it and say and express your feelings and grieve and cry and feel whatever you're feeling. But then I think we need to look at it and say, okay, what am I supposed to be learning from this? What can I do differently the next time? It's a learning, a learning curve. Everything is. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. I concur. I also am triggered to think that there are ways that can be learned to express your anger appropriately.
Yes.
And I would think from my own personal life that assertive behavior, assertive communication is an effective way to express your anger without being hostile. Am I correct in that?
Yes, because I've often, we speak about this, there's a big difference between assertiveness and aggression. So I think it's very healthy to be assertive. That's one of the reasons that often some people get to a place of real anger. They're angry that they weren't more assertive in their life.
Could you give us just a few quality differences between assertion and aggression? How do you distinguish them? What are some qualities that distinguish them?
Well, assertiveness is using I statements, not you statements.
Okay, yes.
And also being able to approach the situation without blame. I think that we don't want to blame or shame other people or ourselves. That's where those tapes come from that we were talking about, those negative tapes. People often will carry around a lot of shame and a lot of blame once they start to be, look at things in their life. But that, again, is where there's a big difference between accountability and shame. There's no room for shame in, recovery. You really don't need to carry that. Accountability is very different. Accountability is dignified. Aggression and anger are not dignified. Right?
Sometimes they're pretty horrible.
Anytime we feel good about our behavior or feel confident about our behavior, that is healthy. So that usually is an indication of what's assertive versus what's aggressive. When we're aggressive, we don't feel good. I mean, our inner self will tell us that. Our conscience will tell us that. And then that's where a lot of the shame and blame comes from.
Okay.
So why keep repeating habits and ways of dealing that are going to create all of the shame and blame in those tapes that you're going to be running in your head, right?
Yeah, and you also raise another idea, which is the absence of control. When you're assertive, you're maintaining control.
Yes.
Of your communication. When you're aggressive, you're just blurting it out.
It's just out there.
Yeah, or you're chasing, vehemently after somebody, or you're really just trying to hurt them, all that kind of stuff. So it's an out of control kind of experience, or it can be.
And we can't take that back.
Exactly.
And those are the things that keep us in bondage.
Yeah.
To shame.
Those memories and that
that you keep, exactly. So in effect, what we're trying to do is create new memories of our actions and the way we go about things. Because then when you put your head on that pillow at night, and you we all do that, we kind of, unless we're just totally exhausted, we kind of go through the day a little bit. And we want to feel good about our actions and the words that we spoke. We don't want to feel bad because that's what causes grief and all of that heartache. So trying to get past that, which isn't always easy.
No, it's not.
You know, in life, it's not always easy. But I think every once in a while we all need a good cry.
We do.
Need to release that.
That's very true. And you know, you said in your presentation, the happiness comes from within us.
Within, yeah.
It's not something. I mean, we can. I think there's a difference between happiness and joy.
Yes.
You can be made happy by some physical things in your world, or you can be made happy by a pleasurable experience of some kind that you have, whether it be physical or otherwise. And joy involves a relationship. Joy involves other people. It involves another person. Or you know, your contact with something that you believe is bigger than you are.
And I think joy is a heart thing.
It's a heart thing. Yeah.
And I think happiness is a head thing.
Yeah.
If that can be defined.
Yeah, that's a nice way to describe it as well.
That analogy works.
Yeah, it does. It works for me. Another thing I would like you to speak to, if you, in your experience, what has come about for people? Well, let me say it this way. Sometimes I've witnessed individuals who are succeeding, and then all of a sudden they stop succeeding abruptly. And when they're questioned about what brought about this sudden change, sometimes I've had it reported, well, I'm not good enough for this. I don't deserve to be this good. I don't deserve to get better. You know, I've done all these things, and why should I be granted the opportunity to get better? You know, it's almost like a self-punishment. You know, like a flagellation of themselves in a spiritual way. Do you think that might be in some way related to anger at themselves? Like
I think it has to do with forgiveness.
Talk more about that.
And because of the lack of forgiveness, there is anger.
So they're not forgiving themselves.
But if you touched on something that I think is very important, because in our day and age, in a lot of the religious philosophies, we're taught from the time we're very young that God is a angry, vengeful God, right? I mean, that's kind of counter for me at this point in my life. And after observing what I have observed in lots of people in recovery through all different spiritual or religious affiliations, when one gets to a place where they let go of that dogma and that kind of understanding about God, I think that has a lot to do. I think some people go through their whole life thinking that we need to be punished because of what they're taught when they're young.
I see.
About their religion.
Well, and discipline, depending on the discipline you have when you're a child, I mean, if you're swatted with a strap or beaten with a stick or you're even slapped with a hand frequently, all you're gonna know is being physically injured by for something you've done wrong. There doesn't much love in that, is there?
And that's what I'm saying. So from the time we're very young, we are influenced by the way we're disciplined in our family of origin, and also whatever religious beliefs that we come in contact with or live with. And I think recovery is all about opening yourself up. It's like an awakening. If you're open to new ways of looking at life and God and the universe, I think that it opens up a whole new doorway to think differently.
Yes.
And this is why I differentiate between spirituality and religion. I don't think it's about religion. I think it's about, spirituality is not religion. It's about an inner from the heart thing. And that's what impacts our growth in our life. So once we become open to more new ways of thinking, even if you don't agree with it, maybe exposing yourself to new ways of looking at the world and God, and finding your own center with the God of your understanding. I think that we stay in ruts sometimes if we stay with what we were taught from very young.
We're not willing to explore other options or ways of thinking.
And oftentimes I think that that's what causes a lot of those tapes in our head, because you made a point of that. Yes. I agree. And I saw that in what the people that I was counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing to see people, you know, it's like a switch went aha,
Yeah.
that aha moment.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought of things that way.
Yes.
That releases you because
Yes.
there's a lot of old stuff in there that just
Yeah.
needs to
Yeah.
be let go.
It's like walking through a cobweb and pushing it aside,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit to some examples of affirmation? How does one affirm another person? Or how do you affirm yourself? You know, can you speak to that?
Well, I think it's important to look for the good, like we were saying earlier on. If sometimes when people hit a really rough place, if there's addiction or mental illness or whatever, the smallest things that you can let them know that they're doing well or doing better in their life makes such a difference. It's like putting one foot in front of the other. You know, sometimes it's very difficult. So just, you know, a pat on the back in anything that you see that where a person can, where you can share with them something that's positive about their actions or what they're doing. It's just, or a hug, you know.
So what do you say to a person who's not into warm fuzzies, or who's not into hugs and tugs, as we call it?
Yeah.
You know, what do you say to a person like that? How do you affirm somebody who doesn't want that?
Well, you tell me.
I
What would
don't
you
know
do?
I don't know if I could. I guess
Somebody who doesn't
I guess I would do it
receive?
verbally. I might spend more time attempting to praise them, verbally praise them, or some other means of rewarding them other than touching them. Because some people don't like to be touched, they don't like to be loved in a physical way. They can accept it, you know, in a non-physical way.
I think you bring up a very good point. And I have been in situations where I've been around people who aren't receptive and don't receive kindness and love.
Yeah,
But isn't that indicative of where they're at?
it is. Yes.
So that means that they're on a journey, and some people just don't get it or don't want to get it. And we can't force it.
And that's what I needed to hear, is that no matter how hard we try, we can't change them. They have to change themselves, because as you pointed out, it comes from within.
It comes from within. And that's a very sad place to be if it's a loved one, a family member, or someone that you really care about. But, you know, it's like we all grow. And I find that at this point in my life, I don't want to be around that energy if it's not received. I don't want to be saying, I guess what I've come to understand is that I do see that regardless, like you said, regardless of how hard we may try, we can't help everyone. And we can't give something to someone that they don't want and they don't want to receive. So all we can do is just, like my husband, he has a saying, and I think it's good, just enjoy them for who they are when you are around them. Don't force ourselves on them, and don't try to be lovey-dovey, you know, I love you, and, you know, this kind of thing all the time, because we know they're not in that place of receiving. And I understand also that that has a lot to do with where they're at. They're still very angry. I can't do anything about that.
No.
So, and that is an experience that I have had. That's also an experience that I had as a counselor. Saw people that were just staying in the anger towards their families, towards everyone and everything, and you know that they're going to spend a lifetime maybe in that place if they get recovery at all. You know, it wasn't going to be anytime soon. So.
One last point I'd like to...
And that's what I call recovery. Recovery is not, like you were saying, excuse me, not just addictions, or, you know, it's a different way of looking at life.
And that's a good sequitur into the last point that I would like to bring up, and that is all of these principles not only apply to someone who is in the depths of an addiction or the depths of a problematic lifestyle, or it also applies to the people around them. These principles of recovery, of restoration of oneself to sanity, apply to loved ones living in the same household or in a relationship with somebody or working beside somebody in their office where, you know, you look at this person every day and you see how unhappy they are, or you see how much they're struggling with whatever it is they're dealing with. Maybe they don't want to talk to you about it. Perhaps you've reached out and tried, but it's going to affect me when I'm sitting beside that person all day long, or I'm in the same environment with them on a regular basis. So these principles, as I see it, clearly must be utilized by those around a suffering person as much as the suffering person.
Yes, yeah. And that's why it can be very toxic, you know, being around negativity.
Yeah.
So it comes from within ourselves, and that's where we have to practice detachment. We can't write everyone off. There are people that we have to sometimes, you know, be around, whether it's in, you know, your family or a work situation or whatever. But the important thing is to just keep on keeping on and understanding that life is a journey, being comfortable with being uncomfortable, detaching a little bit, and trying to see life and for ourselves from a different perspective. And then in doing that, we're able to see others and let that go and detach a little bit. But I think that's where boundaries come in. Knowing who you can help and who you can't. First we have to help ourselves.
Yes, right.
And then, there's just, some people just are not going to, they're not ready, they're not receptive. And if that's the case, I guess we have to focus on ourselves only.
I also think, too, I have to add this, that I believe all of us are inherently capable of counseling, if you will, or supporting someone we care about. It's inherent. We know how to do it when we are given the opportunity. That's why friendships are made.
Yeah.
That's why it's easier to go and talk to your friend than it is to talk to your mother or your sister about an issue, because it's safe and you have trust with this person and so on, and they don't look down upon you for perhaps bringing something negative to the forefront. However, that only works to a limit. Depending on the severity of whatever issue it is that a person is dealing with, I believe that sometimes it is necessary to go out and seek a professional, totally objective situation in which to share this information safely, whether that be one-on-one with a counselor in an office, or that be in a group setting specifically for the subject that you are struggling with.
Absolutely. I think talk therapy is essential.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I know people who can get through things in just a few sessions, or have seen this. Some people it takes 10, some people it takes, you know, months. So it's just, everybody's different. But unloading a lot of these things that are going on in our head, I think, is very important, and some people are not open to that. But I think professional help and finding a counselor that you can sit and talk with is essential.
And not being ashamed of that. You know, it's not like you're weak because you have to go and seek assistance from another person. It's more like a place to ventilate. It's a place to get feedback, you know, of, is this real? I mean, am I really going through this?
I know. And oftentimes when you try to share with someone that's close to you or that you trust or whatever, you're sorry later. Because again, that's where that shame comes in. There are some things that you just don't want to or need to share.
Correct.
With a close friend, or because regardless, people do judge. I mean, we have to be careful about that.
Yeah, good
and
point.
That's where I think it's a good forum to get a professional. And it's amazing how that can free you up.
Yes.
You know, just talking about things and speaking about things is really healing, very healing. And then when you get to a certain place, you look back and you go, wow, what was that all about? You know, what was the big thing?
Right.
Sometimes.
Right. That's true. It seems bigger at the moment than it is after the fact.
Seems so traumatic in the moment, and then later you look back and you go, what was that?
Yeah, really. I could have danced through that.
What was I thinking? Exactly. So that's the importance of understanding that and seeing things from that perspective. Knowing that we're all, you know, we all need that, I think, periodically in our lives.
Okay.
Even once we're a professional, and even when you're working in the professional field as a counselor, sometimes you need a counselor to talk things through with.
No question
about that. So no one
is
above it. It's not, you know, anything that is something that I think one should look down on. I think it's very freeing. I think it's very healthy. And I think it's very, you know, healing, freeing and healing. So
So to close this afternoon, what would be a final thought you would share with our viewers in terms of this whole matter of, making change within one's inner self to arrive at a more comfortable place than being angry all the time?
I think the most important thing is to be in the moment and be in the now.
Be in the moment and be in the now.
Let go of the past and enjoy the moment for what it is right now, even though we're still working on things. Just be in the now, because we only have this moment in time. We don't know what the future holds, correct?
That's true.
So we need to be in the moment and enjoy what is.
Sharon, thank you so much. It's been a great opportunity to be with you as always. So we'll look forward to another time when we go forward.
Thank you so much. Well, I enjoy the dialogue. Thank you.
You're welcome.